I got the house in my inheritance, while the favored brother got a boat. I renamed it Benjamin House, ignored their rage, and cut toxic ties. I'm Jack, 32 years old, and I've never been the favorite. Not the golden child, the family pride, or even the person that gets invited to group shots without being reminded. My oldest brother, Lucas, 37, has always worn the invisible crown. The successful one, the married one, the one who gave my parents grandchildren. It looks that he is the only person in our lineage who matters anymore. I used to brush it off. I persuaded myself I was simply the quieter, more independent black sheep, in a nice, misunderstood way. But it wasn't charming. And it stopped being manageable when my parents made it apparent, both financially and emotionally, that I was only a supporting character in a drama with Lucas as the hero. I didn't expect anything when my granddad died. That man was a phantom for most of my life. A mystery elderly lady who lived 3 states away and sent the same birthday card each year. A basic best wishes letter with a crisp $25 note inside. However, it looks that he had been paying attention. He'd noticed something I hadn't realized he was observing. Christmases when I received socks while Lucas's children ripped into drones and tablets. On Thanksgivings, I sliced the turkey, cleaned the dishes, and sat at the kids' table while Lucas offered toasts about family values. Birthdays were neglected, and phone calls were never answered. The years I spent beginning my own life from scratch, working 2 jobs in my early 20s, seeking an online degree, canceling holidays because I couldn't afford the gas to go home, while Lucas received support in the form of loans that were never expected to be paid back. My grandfather saw everything, and in the end, he handed me a significant legacy that I had no idea existed. The call arrived on Tuesday. I was in the process of making lunch. Nothing fancy. Simply eggs and bread. My mother called out of the blue. "No. How are you?" No small talk. Just then, "Your grandfather's lawyer called. You're receiving a sizable check." I blinked. I honestly didn't know how to answer. "Wait, what?" I said, half laughing. I figured she was joking. My mother does not tell jokes. She remarked, "He left you the house. As if it were rotten. There's also an investing account. Lucas only gets the boat." That was it. That signaled the beginning. I could practically hear storm clouds developing at the other end of the telephone. She didn't congratulate me. They didn't inquire how I was feeling. Only a flat, frigid pause. "Then you realize that your brother may use the money more than you. He has children, Jack." It wasn't even subtle. That line bothered me for several days. He has children. As if that fact alone negated everything I'd done to get here. As if being unmarried, childless, and living in a small 1-bedroom apartment disqualifies me from getting kindness or fairness. I had no idea how much the inheritance was at the time. I hadn't phoned the attorney yet, but she did, and Lucas had as well, as I received a text from him 3 days later. There is no greeting or introduction. "You realize you owe me this, right?" I stared at the screen. I must have read it 25 times. I owe him. What do I owe him? My grandfather left me money. I was still processing the reality that I inherited anything at all. And now I'm meant to feel sorry about it. I didn't say anything because I couldn't trust myself not to erupt. I eventually contacted the lawyer on Friday. His name was Matthew Palmer, and he sounded precisely like someone with that name, measured, courteous, and a little bored of human interaction. He confirmed what my mother said. I had a completely paid-off house in a quiet area an hour outside of the city, as well as an investment account worth little less than $350,000. Lucas, on the other hand, acquired the family boat, which was apparently valued at $55,000. A generous present, but hardly life-changing. Matthew expressed it calmly, as if he expected me to respond adversely. But I was too astonished to be anything but silent. I hadn't communicated with my granddad in nearly 6 years. Nevertheless, he had left me with this. Not because I was his favorite, but because, according to the letter, he wanted to balance the balances. That letter was only 2 paragraphs long, yet I read it more than I can remember. He said he'd seen how I was handled, that he liked my independence, and that he was proud of the man I'd grown into, even though no one else had acknowledged it. I cried. I don't weep much, but I cried while sitting alone on my hand-me-down couch, clutching a letter from a man I barely knew who understood me better than my parents. Of course, the brief period of calm did not persist. The next week, Lucas called instead of texting, which made me worry what had occurred. Perhaps he wanted to bury the hatchet, speak like an adult, and resolve things calmly. I was naive to believe that. He said, "Hey," with a dismissive tone. "I'm assuming you've already processed everything." I didn't understand what he meant by processed, so I remained silent. He said, "Look, I'm not trying to be a jerk. Okay, but come on, buddy. You don't need all that. You're single, You don't have children or a mortgage. What are you going to do with it? I blinked again. These people relished reminding me that I didn't have any children. I don't think it matters, I said. Grandpa bequeathed it to me. That's it. There was a pause. Then he laughed. This quick, harsh sound resembled a scoff. You realize you're not being fair, right? I have 3 children. Are you aware of how expensive it is to raise 3 children? And the house? You don't even want a house. You're a city guy. I swore. I could feel my hands squeezing the phone more strongly. My jaw clenched so firmly that I believed my teeth would snap. I didn't ask for any of this, Lucas. I tried to keep my voice even. It's not about what I desire. It's about Grandpa's choice. He did not like it. He hung up. Then I received messages from my mother, father, and even my aunt, whom I hadn't heard from in years. These are all variants on the same topic. Be a larger person. Help your brother. Family comes first. It's just money. He needs it more. You'll understand when you have your own family. It was as if they'd all been handed a screenplay. The connotation was apparent. If I did not give Lucas what he desired, I was selfish, immature, frigid, and ungrateful. What are you ungrateful for? It was no longer about money. It was all about control. About them discovering, possibly for the first time, that I possessed something they couldn't handle and guilting me into giving it up. A week later, I got an email from Matthew Palmer. Subject: urgent attempted contact regarding inheritance. Lucas apparently approached the law firm personally, wondering if there was a legal method to reallocate his fortune. He had attempted to fight the will, not for any fraud or technicality, but because he thought it was unfair. The attorney informed him respectfully but firmly that the will was genuine. My grandfather was of sound mind, and there was no grounds for a dispute. I anticipated it to be the conclusion. It wasn't. That Sunday, my mother sent me a message. Send it to him, or do not bother coming home. No hello. No context. Just that. I sat there, phone in hand, staring at the words. Send it to him or do not bother coming home. I didn't cry that time. I smiled. That's when I noticed something had changed. That night, I didn't phone anyone. I didn't argue. I didn't give a dramatic answer. I booked a flight. I changed my password. I secured my accounts. I updated the security system in my home. I sent Matthew Palmer a single email, authorizing him to handle any future correspondence, and told him that I wanted to talk about the next steps in securing the property. Then I went to bed with my phone on silent. I awoke to 45 missed calls and 1 rage-filled voicemail from my father. And that was just the beginning. It started tiny, as these things often do. Little digs and passive-aggressive remarks. I had foolishly believed that going low contact following the transfer it to him message would bring me peace. Instead, it looked to inspire something worse, as if I had broken some unspoken law of the family order, and now they were all lining up to put me back in my proper position. I didn't go home for Easter. It's not such a huge issue, right? I was never a lover of large family gatherings. However, in the days leading up to it, the texts resumed. Mom said, "You could at least make an appearance. Lucas's kids want to see their uncle." Dad said, "It's not about you, Jack. It's about family. Stop acting like a victim." And Lucas, of course, said, "Enjoy spending Grandpa's money alone." So I ignored them, cooked myself a quiet dinner, watched a movie, and tried to enjoy the silence. The photos started pouring in on Facebook. The complete family dressed in pastel colors. Lucas's children are carrying large plastic eggs. My folks are beaming in the background. And then, because the world can't resist a good jab, my mother posted a photo with the message, "So grateful for family. All of our blessings in one room." Oh, I didn't even like Facebook. I hardly checked it. But that night, I checked it 3 times. I didn't miss them. I just wanted a reminder. I needed to remember how swiftly they removed me once I stopped supporting their story. A week after Easter, I got an email from a real estate agent. It was about the house, more specifically my grandfather's house. They asked if I still intended to list it. I hadn't even called a realtor yet. Confused, I called the agency. The woman on the phone was friendly and kind, but clearly perplexed. "Oh, I spoke to a Mr. Lucas last week. He said he was representing you as family and wanted to get the ball rolling." I nearly dropped my phone. I responded, "No. I had not authorized anyone to represent me or sell my home." She apologized sincerely and offered to write a notation in the file, but the damage was already done. He had tried to sell my house, and not discreetly. According to the agency, he had already photographed the inside. That was the part that made my blood run cold. I hadn't given him the key. So, how the hell did he get in? I traveled out to the property the next day. It was a calm Wednesday morning, and I drove an hour with a pit in my stomach. The neighborhood remained tranquil as usual. On immaculate lawns, retirees stroll little dogs and mailboxes while respectfully raising flags. But when I pulled into the driveway, I noticed it right away. The lockbox. A huge black realtor lockbox sits on the doorknob. He'd replaced the darn locks. I stood there for an entire minute, gazing. I own a house. My inheritance. The only thing that was always mine. And he stepped in and claimed it as if it were nothing. Rage does not strike immediately. As portrayed in films. Not always. Sometimes it comes in waves. Slow, crawling, and relentless. I didn't shout. I didn't punch anything. I simply took out my phone and photographed the lockbox, the exterior, and the mailbox with my name on it. I strolled around the perimeter and took a slow video. Then I drove straight to the police station. It was the first time I'd stated it aloud to an official. I believe my brother broke into my house. The officer was unexpectedly sympathetic. He took the report and asked whether I had evidence of ownership. I did, and was instructed to call a locksmith and a lawyer. That evening, I had the locks changed again. This time, a security system is installed, which includes cameras, motion sensors, and a smart doorbell. I did not tell anybody. I didn't want them to know what I was planning. I just wanted to watch. Sure enough, 3 nights later, the motion sensor went off. I was inside my flat, but my phone lit up with a warning. Front door activity was detected. When I opened the app, there he was, Lucas, standing on the porch in a sweatshirt, struggling with the lockbox, which no longer existed. He appeared perplexed and annoyed. He rattled the doorknob before looking directly into the camera. He saw the light and knew what it was. He didn't say anything, but I could see it in his expression. He knew. I never called him or mentioned it, but the silence that followed was heavy with unspoken meaning. A week later, I received a certified letter by mail. My parents had engaged a lawyer. The letter was a polite, lawful, and straightforward request. They asked me to consider handing Lucas partial ownership of the estate. It presented it as a goodwill gesture. They said it was for the benefit of family harmony. My father had signed it, not my mother, or Lucas, my father. The same man who had told me, "You've got to earn your way in this world, Jack," now wanted me to give up what I'd earned through grief, suffering, and silent, terrible years of being the one no one battled for. I did not reply. Instead, I returned to the house and sat in my grandfather's old recliner, which they had not yet sold or donated. I sat down and simply existed. I gazed around at the dusty shelves, the antique lamp with the bent shade, and the subtle aroma of leather and time. That's when I discovered the photo, nestled beneath a stack of old Reader's Digests on the bottom shelf of the bookshelf next to the fireplace. A framed picture of myself and Grandpa. I don't remember it being taken. I must have been 19 or 20. We were sitting outside somewhere, possibly on his porch, and I had an odd grin. He appeared to be proud. Tired but proud. That photograph crushed my heart more than any betrayal because it made it real. He had spotted me when no one else had. I left the photo as a totem. The following day, I received another text from Lucas. "You're being ridiculous. You know this isn't over, right?" I didn't react. 3 days later, my aunt called. The individual who never calls. She sounded breathless, as if she were pacing. "I'm staying out of it," she explained. "But you should know your parents are planning to go public about this." "I haven't seen it." "Go public? What does that even mean?" "They are informing everyone, including Lucas's cousins, neighbors, and church, that you are withholding money from him and that Grandpa's will was manipulated." I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't hilarious, but it was ridiculous. Manipulated. I hadn't spoken to the man in 6 years. If anything, I assumed Lucas would get everything. But it was all part of the show. That was always the play. If they couldn't embarrass me privately, they would do it publicly. The Facebook postings resumed the next Sunday. "Dad, some people forget that family is a responsibility, not a competition." "Gran, sad to see what greed does to a man." "Hannah, Lucas's spouse, my babies don't deserve this. They just want their uncle back." Then, because nothing in this family happens in isolation, I got an email from my company's human resources department. A worried community member had sent me an anonymous email saying that I was embroiled in a legal struggle over contested assets, which could harm my credibility. It was subtle and imprecise enough to be ignored, but someone had tried to harm my career. That's when I knew it wasn't about inheritance. It wasn't even about the home. It was about power and retribution. They couldn't believe I had defended myself and had something they couldn't touch. So they planned to burn the ground around me until I crawled back. But I wasn't crawling back. I was done crawling. I did not react in the way they expected. That was certainly the most perplexing aspect for them. There were no furious responses. No long explanations. There is no family chat meltdown. I did not show up at their doorstep to defend myself. I didn't beg to be understood. I didn't even share my side of the story on Facebook, which in our family is considered silence under oath. Instead, I became quieter. And by quiet, I mean I moved away from everyone. My phone switched to permanent silent mode. I stopped checking notifications. I deleted Facebook entirely. I even changed my phone number, not out of malice, but out of need, because seeing my father's name or Lucas's texts on my screen made my chest constrict like I had swallowed a fist. And I couldn't keep living like that. But let me clarify, I did not do it because I was powerful. I did it because I was exhausted. There comes a period when you experience an emotional low. Not the shouting or crying on the floor sort, but the quiet kind. Like sitting at the bottom of a drained swimming pool, looking up at the world above, and understanding no one is coming for you. That was me alone in a house full of other people's furniture, eating microwave noodles at a plastic fold-out table because I didn't have the time or energy to relocate real furniture yet. That house, my inheritance, appeared less like a gift and more like a battlefield. Every nook was a reminder of the battle I had not asked for. Lucas sought to incorporate the guest bedroom in his web home photographs. The vacant living room where they formerly celebrated holidays without asking me. Even the front porch, which I'd started referring to as the lockbox scene, was on my mind. So, yeah, I stopped speaking to them. However, this did not imply that the sounds had ended. Word spread immediately. My cousin Chris texted me one night. "Yo man, are you really suing your parents?" I had not been. Not yet. However, the rumors had pushed me from selfish to legally hostile. And the reaction followed me like a foul odor. Suddenly, I was the reason why the family group vacation did not happen. I was the one who divided the family up. I was making Lucas's children uncomfortable at school. One of my old high school buddies even messaged me, saying that my father had asked his mother at church to pray for Jack's heart. I was presented as the villain in a story that they had written without my involvement. And for a while, I allowed it get to me. I spent weeks scarcely getting out of bed. I've stopped replying to business emails. My supervisor, a nice person, called to see how I was doing. I lied, claiming I had the flu. He granted me the rest of the week off. I spent it watching documentaries and stared at the spinning ceiling fan above me. One night, I broke. It wasn't dramatic. I was brushing my teeth when I observed my own reflection in the mirror. Hair is a disaster. The hoodie was soiled with ramen soup. The eyes appear sunken and fatigued. And out loud, like an idiot, I whispered, "What if they're right? What if I was selfish? What if I should just give it to Lucas? What if I was making too big a deal out of it? Wouldn't it be easier to just let go, hand it over, and go back to being the quiet one who never made waves?" That thought stayed with me all night. However, something odd happened the next morning. I woke up. That's it. I just got out of bed, had a long shower, cleaned the kitchen, and purchased a proper table from Wayfair. Not because I had a spiritual awakening or watched a TikTok about healing, but because I knew the world would not stop spinning for me. No one was coming to save me. And if I didn't want to drown in their interpretation of my life, I had to start building my own. So, I took it slowly. The first thing I did was remodel my home. I didn't even plan to live there long term, but I wanted to make it mine. To reclaim the narrative, I began with the kitchen, ripping out the cabinets myself, watching YouTube videos on tile installation, and painting till my hands cramped. It was dirty, slow, and utterly outside of my comfort zone. But it gave me something I hadn't felt in months. Control. The neighbors began to notice. Maggie, in her late 60 seconds, is a dog owner and an amazing baker. She gave me lemon bars and introduced herself. She had knew my granddad. He said he used to wave from his porch every morning. We spoke for 25 minutes.